Hey everyone, Alex here from Japanese Masters, and today we're going to cover Minna no Nihongo, Lesson 6, Part 2, that is Noun o shimasu. Okay, let's go ahead and dive right on into this. Okay, so the first thing that we should notice is that this is very, very similar to the structure that we actually covered last lesson, which was noun o verb transitive. All this is basically a more specific instance of noun o transitive verb. And the reason that we're covering this specifically is because shimas actually has multiple meanings. Its general meaning, as I put here in English, is to do in. However, as we're going to see in a second, shimas can have multiple meanings. It's one of those words that is almost like an auxiliary verb, which means that it has a whole bunch of different functions, and depending on how you use it, the meaning changes, or it can kind of replace some other verbs in certain instances. Let's go ahead and break it down, though, and hopefully we'll understand it a little bit better after that. So the first thing we have, just like the last lesson, is our noun. That is going to be a noun that the person is doing, and like before, it is going to be the direct object of the sentence. Then we have o, that is of course going to be our direct object marking particle, and like I said in the last lesson, in English, we decide what the direct object marking particle is by where the word is placed in the sentence. However, in Japanese, they use a particle to determine that function because they are a particle-based language. And then we have shimas. So shimas has three basic meanings. The first one is to do something like play a sport or a game. The small example I have here is saka o shimasu. So you can insert any sport here, like yakkyu o shimasu, like to do baseball, play baseball, something like that. So that is one of the meanings. Another meaning is to like hold an event or a gathering. So like kaigi o shimasu, which is what this here is kaigi. Kaigi means meeting, so to have a meeting. You could also have like something like party o shimasu, which is to have a party. So to hold any sort of event, you're going to do shimasu after it. You could hold meetings, parties, poker nights, something like that. That's going to be the gatherings or events that you use shimasu with. And then the last one is to literally do something. The example here is shigoto o shimasu. So to like do work, or there are a lot of different actions where you can do shimasu after it. Like you can basically take a noun and put shimasu and you are doing that noun. So for example, if you took the what is the thing for a noun like shukudai, homework. Shukudai o shimasu. That would be to do homework. Rirori o shimasu, to do cooking, something like that. However, there is one thing that I would like to go over, and that is, you've probably seen this one before. Benkyou shimasu, or benkyou suru, which is to study. And you might be thinking, well, how come this one doesn't have the o after it? If I said before that you have a noun, then o, then shimasu, how come something like this, benkyou, which is study, how come that doesn't really have a o after it? Well, the reason is that there is a slight difference between a group 3 verb, which is something that ends in suru, like for example, benkyou suru would be a group 3 verb, and something that's noun o shimasu. This is going to be something that you're going to have to just kind of feel your way through. However, think of it as if it's a normal noun that you could add o to, then generally it's going to have the o. But if it's not a general noun you could add o to, then it's not really going to be able to have that o. So for an example, benkyou, you can have benkyou shimasu. Well, now think, would there be a situation where you could have benkyou o? Like, change out the verb, change out shimasu. Would there be a situation where it would work, other than other verbs like to start studying or something like that? Could you eat benkyou or something like that? And the answer is not really. It's not really a verb that can have multiple verbs added onto the end of it, because it in itself is kind of a verb when added with shimasu. However, that does not mean that you won't see benkyou o shimasu. Benkyou o shimasu will be used if someone wants to emphasize the noun. If they want to emphasize that they're studying, then you can use benkyou o shimasu. This is another one of those little subjects that can get really confusing really quickly. However, I just really want you to be able to see it, so if you see something where it doesn't have the o, you can kind of understand why. And you might be wondering, so which one is better to use, the benkyou o shimasu or benkyou shimasu? Well, you'll learn a lot with languages that generally the shorter the sentence, or the shorter that less words that the person has to make, the more popular it's going to be. So most of the time you're going to see Benkyo Shimasu. Like I said, this would be only really if you want to emphasize it. And another reason that you're going to see it without the O is for this right here. So you can only really have one O in a sentence, or not really in a sentence, in a thought in a sentence. There's probably a linguistic term for that, but what I'm saying here is like if you have one simple sentence, you can't have O in it twice. So here I have Nihongo o benkyo shimasu. Perfectly valid sentence that says you're studying Japanese. However, here you have Nihongo o benkyo o shimasu. This is not a valid sentence. You cannot have that O there twice like that. So if you actually want to make this grammatically correct, you could add a no here. So Nihongo no benkyo o shimasu. However, that just sounds extremely unnatural. It's perfectly grammatically correct. Like everyone's going to understand what you're saying. However, it just sounds weird and it would make you sound like a foreigner really, really quickly. So this is another reason why Japanese people won't use the O a lot, is because it makes the sentence more complicated. It's more complicated in order to form a correct sentence if you put the O there. However, if you have simple nouns like sports or events or to do a general something like work, o shimasu, then in that case, you're going to add the o shimasu, and it's just going to be the simple noun o shimasu structure. So let's go ahead and move on to a couple of examples to really show these three meanings off. So the first one is, after school, I am going to play soccer. That's gakkou no ato ni sakka o shimasu. So the first thing I want to go over here is we just have gakkou, that means school, and then no ato ni, which is after. So you're just saying after school. But then we have our noun o shimasu structure. This was in the basic example that I was talking about. We have saka, then we have our o, which again, I've talked about this before in the last lesson, that it doesn't really have a function in an English sentence. You're not going to see any red up here because we do it by word order. Then we have our shimasu, which in this instance means going to play. So like I said before, it means generally to do, but it kind of morphs its meaning based on the noun that's put before it. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next example sentence. The next example sentence is, I am having a party this weekend. That is, ko no shumatsu, party o shimasu. Okay, so shumatsu is the Japanese word for weekend. If you are more curious, this is the kanji for week, and this is the kanji for end. So it's actually exactly how it is in English. It is weekend. And then we have kono, which we've covered in a previous lesson, just means this. When it's attached to a noun, it goes from kore to kono. Then we have party, which is, like I said before, it's just a loan word from the English word party, becomes party. And then we have our o shimasu structure. And like I said before, to do is the basic meaning of shimasu. However, when it has party before it or an event before it, then it's the equivalent of having a party, or the event is happening, something like that. And this is just more a little, I guess, tip. If you ever need to type something like this, where you have the te and then the small e, like this, if you are typing on a keyboard and you need to type this, for one thing, if you want to type this, you can actually type THI and it'll create this. But if you just want to create a small hiragana or katakana character by itself, if you type X and then the hiragana character, so if you type XI, it'll actually make it small. Something that took me a while to learn. Just thought I'd throw that out there if you didn't know it and you're typing Japanese and you're wondering how you type this little tiny katakana character or even a small hiragana or anything like that. Like if let's move on to the next example sentence, so I can show you it really quickly. Like if you want to type the small ya right here, you could put an X and then ya, and it would automatically be small. If you didn't want to have to type kya, if maybe you'd already typed the key and you want to just put a small ya, that's how you do that. Just, the more you know kind of thing. But let's go ahead and go over this final example. This final example is, unfortunately, I have to do homework. So that'd be, ainiku shukudai o shinakya. Okay, so this one has a lot going on. I wanted to throw a little something different at you for the last sentence. So the first thing that we should go over here is this unfortunately. Ainiku. Ainiku is literally just the word for unfortunately. You can add a ni after that really emphasizes the unfortunately. But this would be used if someone asks you to maybe go to a party or to go to a movie or to go get some food, and you'd be like, unfortunately, I have to do homework. Or a lot of times, if you don't want to say what you're doing, you can just say chotto ainiku, which, is just the Japanese way of saying, sorry, I can't go, without actually saying it. Then next we have shukudai, which is homework. And in this last part, like you might be wondering, we've been covering noun o shimasu. What is this shinakya? Well, this shinakya is shimasu. If you notice, there's the shi right there. However, this is a different form of shimasu. This is actually a colloquial form for the phrase to have to do something. There are a lot of different ways to form it. There's a Kansai version of it, there's the normal standard way of it, and there's a whole bunch of ways to shorten it. So shinakya is one of the ways to shorten it that you generally say with something like friends or people that you're close with. And the reason is that the long one, shinakereba narimasen, is a very long phrase to say, and you really only say that if you have to. So shinakya is a shorter version of that. If you want to go Kansai, it'd be shinakan. And there's a whole bunch of different ones. There's like shinakereba ikemasen, or different stuff like that, which basically has the same meaning of you have to do something with subtle differences in meaning. However, I just wanted to kind of introduce you to this. In this one, it's basically the equivalent of have to do. This one is more or less the basic meaning of shimasu, which is to have to do. Or this is the basic meaning of shimasu, which is to do. I just altered it slightly to say I have to do it. And if this doesn't make a lot of sense to you, if you're confused about this, then don't worry too much about it. It's still your basic noun structure, and then our shimasu over here. It's just I just want to show you that it doesn't have to be directly shimasu. It's the verb suru. It's the verb shimasu. It's whatever form you want to make it into. You can change that, and it would be perfectly fine over there. But that is going to be the end of today's lesson. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. Until next time, guys, keep studying Japanese. All right, everyone. See ya.